Hi, Bill Felber for CZAD. I'm here visiting with Dr. Juergen Richt, the director of CZAD, recently returned from a trip to the Far East, South Korea and Mongolia, and we're here to discuss the events of that trip. Dr. Richt started in Korea with the World Veterinary Conference, in which you played a role. Tell us a little bit about the role that you played there.
We had a really large meeting where a lot of veterinarians around the world participated in, and I was invited to give 3 lectures. One lecture on Rift Valley fever and our vaccine development, one lecture on African swine fever virus and our work with African swine fever virus, and then one lecture more to describe our center and also how we prepare the nation, United States, with a vaccine against highly pathogenic avian flu. I also was asked to chair a session on porcine medicine.
So from Korea you went to Mongolia, where you were doing work on a couple of very significant issues, one of which I understand was foot and mouth disease. What was taking place there?
So Mongolia is a big country landlocked between Russia and China, and has not many people, but many, many animals. Many cattle, sheep, goats, yak, camels. And they have one very bad disease called foot and mouth disease. And when we were there, they had an outbreak in the southern part called Little Gobi of foot and mouth disease. And I was there with a student who works on a diagnostic test, PET-site kind of diagnostic test for foot and mouth disease, and he tested some of his samples we produced here and down there, and we were also out with some veterinarians, Mongolian veterinarians, to not in the foot and mouth disease affected areas, but in other areas, to sample pigs, to sample camels, and to sample cattle, and we used the samples to study them for the presence of Rift Valley fever virus, for the presence of Middle East respiratory syndrome coronavirus, and the pig samples for the presence of swine influenza.
Now the other issue is with respect to African swine fever, which has been present for some time now in Europe, and I understand moving into Asia as well.
That was the big fear, that African swine fever, which originally came from Africa and was introduced to Transcaucasus in 10 years ago, and now moving towards Europe, is somehow also moving towards Asia, because Asia has the biggest population of pig production in the world, especially China. And what happened about 4 or 5 weeks ago, the virus moved 4,000 miles east, from the western part of Russia to the eastern part of Russia to Siberia, and is now in Siberia, and everybody's nervous because Siberia is obviously much closer to China than the western part of Russia. And the only buffer between Russia or Siberia and China is the Mongolian state, the Republic of Mongolia.
Is it possible to control that virus between Russia and China, for instance in Mongolia, given the dynamics of the animal situation there?
It's very difficult to control African swine fever virus. We have seen that in many countries. The only way to control it is stamp out of affected farms and pig farms. There's no vaccine. And the big problem we have is the feral pig or the wild boar. And as we know, there are wild boar in Siberia, there's wild boar in Mongolia, and they're almost impossible to control.
Well, that's going to be a tough situation, particularly if it gets into China with their pig population. I appreciate the time, Dr. Richt. For CZAD, this is Bill Felber. Thank you.